Sudanese women from Gezira state have committed mass suicide in an act of desperation to avoid being raped by the paramilitary rapid support forces. Some media sources have reported that the act was committed on October 26th by over 130 women, a number that has not yet been officially confirmed. A report by the United Nations Women revealed that gender-based violence in Sudan has more than doubled since the war began, with the number of individuals at risk having risen from 3.1 million to 6.7 million by December last year. Here is our cover report.
Crossing into Chad, 27-year-old Fatima, not her real name, thought she'd left the horrors of Sudan's war behind. The bodies she ran over while fleeing, the screams of girls being raped, the disappearance of her husband when the gunmen attacked. But now, as a refugee, she says she's faced more suffering, being forced to have sex to survive. She cradled her 7-week-old son, who she said was a child of an aid worker who promised her money in exchange for sex. The women spoke on condition of anonymity because they feared retribution from the men who they said exploited them.
We came to Chad and the food they gave us was not enough, so I slept with the man and I gave birth to his child. I had 4 children from marriage. This is the 5th child. I had to, because they don't give us enough to eat.
Rights groups and activists say several women have taken their lives in Sudan's central Gezira state after being raped by the paramilitary. The reports come after the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces was accused by the United Nations of atrocious crimes including mass killings in the state. With RSF fighters continuing to advance, one rights group says it is in contact with 6 women who are contemplating taking their own lives as they fear being sexually assaulted. But the RSF has dismissed a recent United Nations report blaming a rise in sexual violence on its combatants, telling news sources that the accusations were not based on evidence.
We are receiving reports of horrific violations of international human rights and humanitarian law, including sexual violence committed predominantly against women and girls. We strongly condemn the Rapid Support Forces' continued attacks against civilians. We also strongly condemn the Sudanese armed forces' indiscriminate airstrikes in populated areas. We are appalled by the attacks against civilians perpetrated by forces affiliated with the Sudanese armed forces in the Khartoum area. Let me stress that both warring parties bear responsibility for this violence.
Some Sudanese women and girls asserted that men, including humanitarian workers and local security forces, have sexually exploited them in Chad's displacement centers, offering money, easy access to assistance, and jobs. Such sexual exploitation in Chad is a crime. 3 women and girls spoke directly in Adre town near the Sudanese border. A Sudanese psychologist shared the accounts of another 7 women and girls who either refused to speak directly or were no longer in touch with her. Hundreds of thousands of people have streamed into Chad to escape Sudan's civil war, which has killed over 20,000 people. The large majority of those fleeing are women. Aid groups are struggling to support them in growing displacement sites. The United Nations Refugee Agency say displacement camps have safe spaces where women can gather, along with a free hotline and feedback boxes to report abuse anonymously. Yet, most women said they were not aware of the hotline and using the boxes would draw unwanted attention.
The fact that assistance is not enough for them can be a reason for them to go for survival stays.
An 80-page United Nations report said that since the conflict began, at least 400 survivors of conflict-related sexual violence have been documented up to July this year, with the actual figure suspected to be much higher. Victims it documented have ranged from between 8 and 75 years, with many of them needing medical treatment. But most hospitals and clinics have been destroyed in the fighting. Africa Bureau, WION, World is One.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.